Yes, this is Jeff calling from Virginia. My question is, um, if Jesus was indeed a historical figure that existed, running around uh, Judea at the time, saying this or that or whatever was attributed to him in the New Testament, um, if a lot of it was false and made up, what is the rabbi's opinion on why all this was concocted?
Okay, so Christianity has a very important purpose in the world. So we talked last week about why did Christianity succeed? We know why it succeeded because Paul developed it and Constantine made Christianity licit and preferred, and ultimately the empire in the fourth century would make it the official religion of the empire. And Christianity feeds off of low self-esteem and also provides what seems to be something Jewish. It isn't, but it it seems to be Jewish, but in fact it is opposed by the Hebrew Bible. But why did God permit Christianity to flourish? And not only that it permitted to flourish, is almost as though Hashem wanted Christianity in all of its versions to succeed and other false religions to recede, which they did. Why did Christianity explode exactly? When it exploded, I mean, why did it proliferate? And no matter which version of it, whether it was an earlier version, the ones that Paul was selling, the versions that the patristic fathers were presenting, means like the first 500 years of Christendom. So there always has to be a false religion in the world until the Messiah comes. Because if there's no false religion, then there's no free will. Why would Christianity successfully gain so many members after the destruction of the Second Temple? So there is a reason for this. And Maimonides addresses this question in his work called The Laws of Kings, the last chapters. So there is a very important feature of the Messianic age in that when the true Mashiach comes, the world will immediately recognize its error and turn to the God of Israel and completely jettison their previous beliefs. This is very clear in Tanakh that the Gentiles will come to you and say, surely you've inherited lies and vanity, wherein there could be no truth. How can a man make unto himself gods when they are not? What comes across very clearly in the Hebrew Bible is that when the true Messiah comes, the world will immediately get it. They'll immediately grab the shirt of a Jew, take us with you. We've heard that God is with you. It's also very striking that one of the things the Messiah will do is build a third temple, which means he's coming after the second temple is destroyed. That essentially, from the moment the second temple was destroyed, the potential for Mashiach is ignited. The kinetic energy is then in place, where it just requires any generation to trigger the coming of the Mashiach. But if the Mashiach would have come, let's say, 2,500 years ago, which would have been during the Babylonian Empire, people just wouldn't know what the Mashiach is, because the idea of a Messiah was just unknown to the non-Jewish world. So Christianity became the false religion that is perfectly seated and situated to be the false religion leading us up to the coming of the true Messiah. Why? Because Christians believe that until the advent of Jesus, till the advent of Christianity, only Orthodox Judaism was true. All Christians believe that until the cross, until Golgotha, until Jesus' crucifixion, only Judaism was true. And then everything changed with a new covenant. So we went into a new dispensation. But all Christians would agree, and you have to think about this very carefully, all Christians would agree that if Jesus wasn't the Messiah, then it would revert back to the default baseline, and then Judaism is true. And that's why Christianity becomes that religion that is false, but prepares the world for coming of Mashiach. Because Christianity teaches that Judaism was true, but it was all pointing to Jesus. But once they find out it wasn't pointing to Jesus, and there's no Trinity, and that you have to keep the mitzvot, they're all going to turn back to the God of Israel. Strikingly, that although Christianity is allowed to believe in a basic concept of one God, it's not a real monotheism, but it seeks to pretend to be a monotheism. And Christianity held that the Torah, the commandments of the Torah, were binding prior to the cross. So Judaism is the default baseline. Immediately, Christians will recognize their error in the Messianic age and come to the Jew and say, now we know that what you're teaching is true. They'll be shocked, and they'll have questions. That's Isaiah 53. They'll be bewildered why the Jews suffered for all these centuries. They'll have their answer at the end of days. So we know why Christianity would be very successful, because it gave people a kind of something that appeared to be Judaism, but you were saved without keeping the commandments. That's Paul's innovation. But the reason why God allowed a religion like Christianity to succeed is because it became the idolatry of choice for the world, because it does prepare the world for Mashiach, not in a good way, but in a very dark way, in that people believe that Judaism is the default baseline. When I say people, I'll replace that word with Christians believe that Judaism was the foundation. So once the true Mashiach comes, they'll understand their error immediately, embrace the God of Israel. Shabbos they don't have. And that's why the church very quickly, early 2nd century, would begin moving from Saturday to Sunday, because after all, Sabbath, Shabbat is Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, is between God and Israel, Exodus 31, verse 17. So there's a two-part to this. Why did it succeed? That's very easy to explain. Why did God allow it to succeed and want it, in a sense, to be the false religion in a post-exilic period for Israel? Is because it'd be ideal setup for the coming of the Mashiach, because people would know that there's an idea of a Mashiach, there's a basic idea of one God, there's a basic idea of commandments, and then once the true Mashiach comes, all the Christians will immediately understand their error and turn to the God of Israel. And it's not an accident that if you go to conversion programs today, 90% of the people there are former Christians. Thank you for your question. If you enjoyed this program, please like and subscribe.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נעשה בחפצו כל